Hello. Thank you for your patience. Dear machine learning enthusiasts, welcome to this panel discussion on the future of AI, our responsibilities. As we gather here today, it's clear we are at a crucial point in the journey of artificial intelligence. Initially, there was so much hype about AI changing the game in every industry and making life better for everyone. But now, we are starting to realize that there are some serious concerns and ethical questions we need to address. Today, we gather to explore how we can navigate these challenges responsibly, ensuring that the benefits of AI are realized while minimizing the potential harms. The central question we face is the one of balance. How do we lower the probability of AI-related risks without slowing down its growth and innovations? This is a complex issue that requires collaboration and thoughtful consideration from all stakeholders, whether it's individuals like us, large corporations, or even governments. To shed the light on the topic, we have the privilege of hosting three esteemed panelists, each bringing unique perspectives and expertise to the table. If I was to detail all of their achievements in the field, we would need at least 2 weeks for the conference. First, we have Professor Jerzy Stefanowski from Poznań University of Technology. A distinguished researcher in the fields of data mining, machine learning, and intelligent decision support. With over 170 research papers and 2 highly cited books to his name, Professor Stefanowski is a leading voice in the quest of responsible AI. His work on ensemble classifiers, learning from class imbalance data, and explainable AI has laid the groundwork for ethical AI development. Our second panelist is Robert Kroplewski. A legal expert and former plenipotentiary of the Minister of Digital Affairs. With extensive experience in technology convergence and new technologies law, Mr. Kroplewski brings a crucial legal perspective to our discussion. As a member of various international expert groups and advisory bodies, he has been instrumental in shaping policies for responsible AI governance at both national and global levels. Last but not least, we have Professor Wlodzislaw Duch, from Nicolaus Copernicus University, a renowned figure in neuroinformatics and artificial intelligence. With a diverse background in theoretical physics, applied math, and computer science, Professor Duch offers contributions to both the European and international neural network societies, Professor Duch offers a multidisciplinary lens through which to examine the ethical implications of AI. His contributions to both European and international neural network societies highlight his dedication to fostering responsible AI research and development. Moderating our discussion today is Dariusz Brzeziński. A sociologist and cultural studies scholar, whose research spans theoretical and methodological approaches in social sciences and humanities. His expertise in social and cultural transformations, including the impact of new technologies, will provide valuable insights into the broader societal implications of AI. Together, our panelists and moderator represent a wealth of knowledge and experience in navigating the complex landscape of AI ethics and governance. Over the course of this discussion, we will delve into key principles that define responsible AI, the steps needed to achieve it, and the roles that individuals, corporations, and governments must play in this endeavor. As we embark on this journey towards a safer and more ethical AI future, let us remember that the decisions we make today will shape the world of tomorrow. By engaging in open dialogue and collaborative action, we can ensure that AI remains a force for good in our society. Thank you, and let us begin our exploration of the future of AI and our responsibilities. Enjoy.
So, hello everyone. I'll be your pilot for today. Actually, I'm not a social scientist. I would say I'm more socially impaired, but I'm more of a computer scientist, so hopefully I'll stick to that. So with that introduction, you know what's on today's menu. Since we're talking about our responsibilities, we have this topic of responsible AI. So I would like to start with a question to Professor Stefanowski, who has the advantage of home field. How would you define responsible AI for us over here? What are its components?
Quickly speaking, because I know that we are somehow in the time limit, I guess we could refer to some documents. If I remember some studies for the papers, the term responsible AI could be defined in some context. For instance, my colleague, Mecenas Kroplewski, was a member of special European Commission experts group on trustworthy AI, and there will be close relationship to trustworthy AI. Nevertheless, I found, I think the first time the term responsible AI in some company documents. It's a bit interesting that some big companies defined manifesto on artificial intelligence and claiming we are developing responsible AI. So quickly speaking, because there was a decision of moderator to define. In my view, I'm not sure my colleagues will agree, it's a kind of recommendation or guidelines assert that when we developed artificial intelligence, in particular applied, we should fulfill some design principles for development also and for applications. And if we look in some of these materials, difficult perhaps to define all components, but just quickly, from this industrial view, you have a lot of terms referring to reliability and safety. If we think about products of artificial intelligence, they should be safe, reliable, and they could be a good product. It's completely different from academia. There will be also responsibility for some damage and harm. Related accountability, elements of privacy and security, the components are very important in some principles. From other point of view, more societal, fairness and considering human autonomy, also transparency of the full process. Understood that we can see how it is developed, what are the data, etc., but also explainability of the artificial intelligence system as a component. So giving also the chance to others,
yes,
I would say this is my view on the responsible AI. If we refer to trustworthy AI, you worked on these principles, they have also some additional elements. So I give the role to Robert.
Called me to jump to this discussion, yes? Thank you very much. This is a question, what is irresponsible AI? My short answer, nothing. Because we don't have any international agreed framework what is called responsible AI. As you, Jerzy, said before, this is some companies produced 992 frameworks, company frameworks, business frameworks, what they called responsible AI. Why? Because they started compete that their responsible framework is the best on the world. That is a global coverage of that kind of framework for that company. And from that perspective, if we have a competition of standards, what kind of standards of responsibility framework win? We, as a community of experts, politicians, scientists, started, it was in 2019, find common sense and finally political and regulation agreement. What does it mean responsible? That word was dropped and we developed new approach based on the trust. We believed that concept came from Poland. We believed that the one value what could be accepted by globe is trust, and technology because of that need to be trustworthy. and how to build trustworthy concept of artificial intelligence is a bit different than responsible. Why? Because in that responsible approach, we have a lack of transparency, we have a lack of fairness, we have a lack of well-being, even social and environmental well-being. These are only samples of differences. And because of that, it's still that action we can see, that hype on artificial intelligence is very often driven by a responsible call to produce an approach to artificial intelligence. But it's misleading, because finally on that way we never will get the trustworthy approach. The base of trustworthy concept is to deal with asymmetry, to produce the product in which you can believe it, you can accept the interaction between people, individual, human, and machine. And finally, that concept is also economical concept, because we can build our product better, acceptable by customers and by clients, and finally you can develop ecosystem of digital services, from the designing to deploying the life cycle of artificial intelligence. And only one accepted framework of responsible AI is in the NATO. It's a bit different. I can define what is it, but maybe it's not for scientists here.
Okay, so maybe I'll have a follow-up question to Professor Duch. You mentioned asymmetry, and we also had the...
Asymmetry.
Yeah, and you also, we had in the introduction the problem of balance, right, and bias. And I heard the phrase that computers are indifferent, humans aren't. And I also heard a friend citing Jan LeCun for saying, a model needs to be biased to be useful, right? There will also be some bias. And I wanted to ask you a question. Do you think it's really the case that we need some bias in models? And do you see a relation between, human bias? Because when we say bias from a mathematical perspective, it's, I believe, something slightly different than like human cognitive bias. So what would be your opinion on, you need some bias to be useful versus maybe not?
Well, the problem with the lawyers is that they want to define that precisely, and as we know, reality is very hard to define precisely. So when we talk about bias, we can talk about, the moral behavior, the things that we may like or not like in the bots that we have to deal with, etc. AI is a very broad term, and most of you as computer scientists actually, solve problems which have not really much impact on things that are related to responsible AI, because, for example, we are working on optimization problems of some sort. We try to maybe have a better research routines for bioinformatics or other things like that. These things are kind of remotely related to products at the end that can actually be used, and only a few of them can harm people in some way, right? But if you try to create any material, new proteins for drug, it's not something that can be trustworthy, etc. So there's a large part, and I just want to stress that there is a large part of AI which somehow escapes from all these discussions of this sort.
But if I may, there's the bio-risk Act or something like recently. So there is some sort of responsibility for not producing viruses or something.
Of course, but here we are talking about products, and I'm talking about the fact that AI is a set of algorithms, and we are working on some algorithms. And of course, if we start to worry that my algorithm may be used by someone who is going to use it in a bad way, we just can't predict things like that. I looked at some, let's say, applications of AI in religious domains, because for whatever reason, because of my name, Duch, I'm invited by some theologians and participated in some theology disputes. Every religion now has a bot. Even in Warsaw, you can find in the center, Copernicus Center there, you can find a little figure which what you can discuss religion. It's a Catholic invention, actually. But every religion has a bot representing some kind of a gods, and would like to have, a system which is moral from their perspective. But there is no universal perspective in the world. There is no set of rules that we can agree upon. And therefore, I think this attempt to define things precisely is going to be always biased by the culture from which it comes. And, I don't see universal solutions. Now, we hear about all kinds of GPTs which will be more individual, based on this and that, and they're going to be biased by the people who are using them, obviously. People are different. Everybody has slightly different biases. So first, we would have to define what is really a harmful bias, right? Something that we really would not accept, or most of us will not accept. But you hear all this discussions about LGBT and other things like that. Some people are biased against, some people are biased for. There is heated discussions, right? So people are biased in different ways, and we cannot expect that we will have a kind of, I don't know, Claude 5 or something which is completely unbiased. So this dream of having AI, which is a godlike, omnipotent, knows everything and is unbiased, it's just a pipe dream, right? It always will be biased. We just have to agree what is the harmful bias, and I think this is a part of this AI Act that I'm sure Robert will comment upon.
Yeah, but if I can, before Robert, to join your question, I would agree with Professor Duch that we should be very careful about the words, because the term bias, it depends, very bad answer. If we think, for instance, the topic where Professor Brzeziński and me recently is working, fairness. So if we think about sources of unfairness in machine learning, we often say about bias in the data. When we talked here and Professor Duch has mentioned something, it was a bit social aspects of harmful bias. But if we come back to the old, probably boring lectures on principles of machine learning, what you mentioned about LaCun, if I remember, this is a very old topic of Top Mitchell. He wrote in 90s years the book Machine Learning. You can find it. And the bias of the algorithm is something positive, in the sense that it is understood completely differently in some directions or constraints, and claiming that we cannot believe about general machine learning system, the success depends on his bias, that it will be oriented to the success in some domain. So it is, I'm not sure so deeply in acts, but it depends, I would say, about the bias.
So maybe because the backdrop for our discussion is the AI Act, so maybe you could discuss how the AI Act discusses this.
Maybe not yet.
Not yet?
Because the discussion is more important than Act, I think. Not only to discuss. Jumping to your challenge, and working on the definition of artificial intelligence system in OECD, or international organization, since 2019. We discovered not only social bias, this is as a buzzword. We need to see the technical bias, perception bias, knowledge bias, especially in the front of artificial intelligence. They are a bit different. And from that perspective, the harm could come from the four dimensions, not only from the social data, encrypted bias. And of course, jumping to the Artificial Intelligence Act, the harm and the risk could be related not only to data, social bias, for example, but also it came from the system, technical. Yeah. And what's important is the trustworthy concept, that this is ethical concept. If Professor Duch said about the morals, we can only, every one of us represent own morality. This is a morality. Ethics is something agreed among people, some group of people. And for example, trustworthy is some core, some set of values and principles. Values as what we believe, and principles is action. What need to be embedded to the system directly and around the system. For example, organizational environment of enterprises or the market. This is a bit different. Not only system, not only coding, it's also to protecting outside of the system. Thank you.
So just comment on the machine learning part. Obviously, in Bayesian approach, you always include these biases because they're, well, helpful, but then we are talking about narrow domain, trying to solve particular problem for which we have a bias. Now, we're talking about general systems that could be applied to many things that we can talk to, and obviously, it's not so easy to define a kind of universal bias in this case. I mean, there will be many different things, yes.
Okay, so we already mentioned the AI Act, and maybe raise of hands who read the AI Act? You read the entire thing?
You mean it's a full document?
I don't believe you, but that's more hands than I expected. So maybe if you could, in a few points, tell, because there are many students over here, how would you summarize like the main takeaway points from the AI Act for someone that hasn't...
There is a summary on the EU page, actually.
Yeah, but we have an expert, maybe he has...
We have the real expert, so let's ask.
I've read this act 100 times during the discussion and negotiation. It was really hard. That paper changed since 2 years, yes. But if we start talking about the summary of the act, we need to come back to the high-level expert group, and that was still the same year, 2011, when the trustworthy concept was conceptualized, and that concept had 3 pillars. One was trustworthy AI is lawful, and we, as an expert, didn't cover that pillars. We only called policymakers. We needed something we needed, but for what? How to support ethical implementation into the system and around the system. And from that perspective, I'm happy because Artificial Intelligence Act is a law, hard law, first horizontal binding legal instrument around the world. This is very important. We have, of course, some vertical acts in China, in Brazil, for example, in the United States lastly. But horizontally, no, it's the first one. The subject of Artificial Intelligence Act is a protection of market and empowering the European Union's developers and scientists. And summary, very short. We are happy that finally the definition of artificial intelligence is related to artificial intelligence system, and we have outside of this short, very easy algorithms and statistics is outside. And in the same moment, general purpose AI, it's a part of artificial intelligence system, not other separate set of techniques. This is important for us. Of course, we have a special duties and obligation related to general purpose AI, but no other definition. And we have a freedom of research. Research is outside of Artificial Intelligence Act, and open source community, and they are developing, is also outside, but to one moment, very important, if something is taken to be a part of a system what will be implemented in the market. Before going to the market, we need to evaluate also a part of production results of work of open source community.
So if I use open source
it's okay.
in a product, then I have to certify it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Product could be hardware or virtual software, yes, finally. But for me, artificial intelligence is not software, it's a set of techniques. I learned from Professor Duch that it's a knowledge-based machine. And that problem was in the definition during the negotiation. Many politicians only would like to see artificial intelligence system as a software, especially underlying that knowledge base is outside. It was not visible, but this is a sense of artificial intelligence, a part. And Artificial Intelligence Act supports knowledge approach, and because of that, it's open for the new developing of any set of techniques. This is very important for us. And finally, supports the trustworthy ethical framework. But from the legal point of view, we decided that normative approach will be based on the risk. What kind of application or what kind of domain in which we apply the artificial intelligence is stress on any risks or some unreal impact. And from that perspective, we get special table, prohibition. It's the first layer of artificial intelligence system, for example, social scoring, and high-risk systems, medium-risk systems, and other. And medium and high-risk systems need to be aligned with additional rules, duties, but for example, other systems in the Artificial Intelligence Act are supported to be ethical. And Artificial Intelligence Act is very important from the different perspective also. It not works separately without a special document, coordination plan or artificial intelligence. The strategic documentation comes from the European Union, but also other legal acts, as a directive, DSM, for example, directive dedicated to the market, DSA directive dedicated to the digital services, but also other, for example, free flow of data cross-borderly. For example, from the economical point of view, Poland in Poland we have a dependency of GDP from flowing data cross-borderly, and this is a chance and a risk if we don't produce and empower people and educate people how to distillate the knowledge from the data. Finally, we will be described by other players. It's good to sit on the flowing of data, analyze data, and produce, for example, any intellectual property. This is the thing, how to protect intellectual property and how to define own strategies, how to scale up outside of our market, our intellectual property. We have a lack of that competency if we talk about the startups and like that. So very, very risky, but this is a first need in front of Artificial Intelligence Act. Many people could say that this is a blockage of market and innovation, but in the same moment, it's a challenge. Why? Because finally we can define our product on the market, and with different features of that product, we can compete with product which came from the, for example, American market or China market, which are defined on utilitarian ethical approach, only benefits and full exploitation of assets, or social scoring or coordinated economy from the China perspective. And that trustworthy approach supported by AI Act and try to define the third road of the developing products finally. Finally, this is a product.
But yeah, I actually wanted to stop about, you mentioned products, right? It focuses around products, and you also talked about empowering innovation and so on. But as you mentioned, that last point is disputable because in the US, people open source large language models, right? In China, they do big systems. In India, when they tried to, govern something, they retracted that because, the pressure from startups is like really big. And you look at Europe, and I heard Yannick Kilcher say, oh, US does this, China this, and Europe was gonna put a AI cookie bar for us to click, and thinking as, imagine I have a company and I have to read all those acts, and instead of that, I'll just put up my company in Boston. So how would maybe all of you react to that? shooting ourselves in the leg with, trustworthiness in terms of innovation? Professor Duch?
Well, I'm afraid that the time when life was easy is over. Every time I try to do something, even just going abroad to a conference, there is 100 things to do, and it takes me days and days to go through all the regulations that we have now, and things are getting worse. So I'm very much concerned about all kinds of regulations that, well, I'm getting all these 60 pages of, contracts because I'm using Samsung telephone, right? Nobody reads that. And why the lawyers are not saying, okay, this is not acceptable. I mean, people don't read that and they have to click that they have done that, etc. So at every step, actually, we are suffering from the lawyers. Sorry, Robert, I like him.
I have an answer.
Let's keep this civilized, okay?
Okay, do not attack too much, guys.
It's not personal. It's just, my kind of stress that I suffer from running all kinds of institutions in the past and still having to deal with that. I'm just overwhelmed with all kinds of regulations. And in this case, I think there are good things about the AI Act and the fact that Europe tries to be more civilized, right? And still, many people take it as something that they cannot accept because, well, they will have to first learn about that. They will have to read all kinds of regulations. We don't have time for that. So I think this is a very good point, that some people are going to escape to places where life is easier. And unfortunately, nobody knows what will be the net result of very noble attempt of European Union to have trustworthy and excellent AI.
But if I can also jump in this discussion, when with Mecenas Kroplewski we met today early in the morning, I have a kind of reference to something earlier, general protection rule. So it was also at the beginning idea which was thought that it is too complicated, etc. Nevertheless, it was introduced. And although it is harmful in some cases, it works. Artificial intelligence is more difficult, but in any case, this is not so bad from my reader point of view than I have expected. I would a bit say that some ideas of the AI system and the application use case, it's much better idea than a few years ago about the algorithms, etc. So it is not perfect. And nevertheless, if we think, for instance, from algorithmic or technical point of view, I guess, probably you will help me, from my reader point of view, high-risk systems have some obligation, as you said, but some of them are not, let's say, very artificial. We need better documentation. If we think about the current, also monitoring, evaluation, testing, data quality, etc., although it is, for me, defined
risk
highly,
system
and
management.
definitely evaluation of the risk, at least from the experiences of us working on machine learning system, even coming back to the today early morning keynote, reproducibility of deep network papers, it's a nightmare currently. So with Professor Skrzypczyński, we have some experiences of studying how it should be better defined. Anyway, in my opinion, the advantages or disadvantages, but I do not treat it only as something which is against us.
I don't treat it also as something against us. There are good points in this. I'm just not very happy with RODO, and I don't think it works. I have to click on every page. I cannot opt out, right? So at every page I have to click yes, 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 I agree for cookies. I know what I'm doing. Now, the problem is that there are many people who don't know what they are doing. Let them do this. But why do I have to suffer because of that? And really, I do suffer because I go through a lot of pages, but, it's not page which I will be ashamed of that somebody is putting a cookie.
Okay, but if I can disagree, It's a typical user point of view, Włodek. Nevertheless, from
There are billions of users.
Okay, but from the designers who are building systems, a lot of ideas appeared about the data privacy, about security, etc. So if I compare the world we remember before RODO, currently systems are a bit safer, not fully, but there is a consequence that it works also for us.
Why I cannot opt out?
Yeah.
I mean, it would be simple to have, okay, you have the right to opt out, and then you are a free man. No, I have to go in the chains all the time because somebody thought, okay, you're too stupid to take responsibility for yourself, right?
I have a ask, maybe don't focus too much on RODO and privacy because it's not good benchmark for artificial intelligence. Of course, behaving, it refers more to the AI literacy, starting point for that. But thank you for calling lawyers. Yeah. But Artificial Intelligence Act doesn't come from lawyers, but from the policymakers, also not. A bit yes, but also not. People afraid it. People want something. Some part of people said, we're afraid. Some part of people said, we need to have ecosystem of funding, of scaling, of access to data, access to the algorithms. We are able to build the European excellence, for example. And on my opinion, why we have an AI Act? Because without this regulation, we will have in Europe open market, completely open market. And who is a winner on open market? The quicker and the biggest. And the biggest in the digital sphere defined all market around the globe and defined existential conditions and even environment. And finally, if the technology is so quick, probably we could lose a chance even to organize ourselves what is going on, who we are. Maybe it's only subject, not a human being, not a creative people. For example, Poland, I like that index very much. It's so visible from the globe as as a creative community with 33%. This is great. This is a last source, a last treasure, and we also can support this or lost. In front of in China, we had this discussion. Having that kind of feature of our mind, our condition, we can compete on special unique approach to artificial intelligence, not repetitive approaches, not reverse engineering artificial intelligence system.
Okay, I also like the fact that the AI Act is a bit copyleft. So even if I develop something in Boston, right, if I want to use it in Europe, I still have to adhere to this. So Europe making the first step might be a bit behind, but like if you want to use the European market, you'll have to implement those rules. And if we talk about implementing rules, I have a question to Professor Stefanowski. We focus on the, let's say, social, ethical stuff. Do you have any suggestions on algorithms or methods for computer scientists they should start learning and using, expecting the regulation that is to come? Do you have something for the students, for example, here to Google something so that once they develop their models, they're ready for it?
Difficult question, but anyway, coming to earlier comments, so we have some elements which were not present 10 years ago, both in the result of high expert groups of European community. Mecenas Kroplewski was a part of it, and also people who created AI Act. So all the concept, let's say, referring like fairness, explainability, better transparency is something which I would recommend our colleagues to study. And in my understanding, some consequences of considering high-risk systems in AI Act and partly medium, we have some I'm not sure still regulation, but at least what Professor Duch is criticizing, some additional things. I already mentioned that in my understanding in high-risk systems, we should develop new standards for documentation. We should have better testing and evaluation, which is not so well developed as standards. Evaluation of the risk will be very interesting, both from the algorithmic point of view, but also from accounting. Coming back, for instance, to the topic of fairness, we have a very good principles, but when we want to measure it practically, we have a lot of open questions how to evaluate it from algorithmic point of view. Having the measures, we could ask a question, what is now available in the literature? Do we have a good solutions to mitigate it? There are some algorithms for data preprocessing, modification of the algorithm to fight with the bias. But in some cases, for instance, with large language models, as already today was discussed, we will not relearn it. We would rather to have something on the outside, post-processing, which help. So, quickly speaking, I guess even observing world conferences in machine learning, or generally AI, you have topics which are closely related to some ideas mentioned earlier, and they're opening many, at least research challenges. But as we decided to talk also about market, about products, to get as a certificate, I would say that the product could be in the European market. It also opens easier solutions how to implement it. And this is something which will appear, and I'm not sure we are ready for it.
So has Microsoft ever got any certificates? We just have to sign, okay, you know, you're not responsible for anything that the system will do to me. That's what we have to sign. And I'm afraid that all kinds of software solutions, at least, will just, you know, try to be the same. They maybe now will be, well, a bit controlled.
I would think that some products will not be allowed in some institution. It's a simple answer.
So Microsoft Copilot is gone, right?
But medical products and medical software needs to be certified. So maybe for
medical software is another issue, but we're talking about general AI product, and now everybody has a Copilot, and everybody has Bing, and everybody has lots of other tools.
But
right?
if having Copilot, you are still a coder, this is a question now, because Copilot learned as a machine from the coders. After that, suggested subscription. I don't know. It's fair, finally.
Yes, but the question is, do they have now, and when should they get a special certificate so that we can use the products that we're using?
I can answer
right now.
If I can, Wlodzisław. It's jumping to your previous question. On the United States, you don't have free market also. They started work on ACT, some artificial intelligence dedicated ACT. That's true. 3 weeks ago, we approved with American representatives also, Canada, Japan, first treaty dedicated to the human rights, democracy and the rule of law in the European Council. United States is not a member of European Council, but as an observer, thought that maybe that will be good act for us finally to ratify. And this is a horizontal, also very serious binding instrument. Why they took part in the negotiation? Because they see the risk. They see also the potential benefits coming from the artificial intelligence well defined. And rather, if we thank you, Jerzy, for that suggestion that documentation well prepared, it's a good challenge, because finally we can understand what we produced. And we could produce also the measurement, some set of tools, how we can measure the positive impact for human and planets. In OECD, we define that value as an ethical value, that any artificial intelligence system needs to be beneficial for human and planet. Then that and conjunction is super important. It's a coexistence. For example, and how to measure this precisely from the scientist perspective. It's a challenge, but for me, it's an interesting challenge.
Okay, so maybe thinking about the future, okay. We have researchers over here, and Professor Duch, I would like to ask you, what do you think is the most exciting part of innovation now in AI? What are you looking forward to? I don't know, AI agent-based systems are interesting, or do you think, general purpose AI or AGI? What do you think is, for the future, the most interesting direction you see now? And do you see responsibility in the things we talked about as some hindrance, as something that complicates this?
Well, very interesting and hard questions, of course, because there are so many things important. I'm sometimes asked, what should, my children study, etc. And of course, you see that the law is most important, because now there will be so many legal problems related to AI.
I don't think
let's switch to the challenges.
But fortunately, AI researchers are going to computerize law, and maybe it will be simpler. No, I'm joking. I'm not picking on the lawyers. I'm just joking. But there are many things that I believe human brain is not suited to, or not powerful enough to really understand. And even things like historical, development processes, etc. When you talk with the historians, they will tell you there are 10 different theories about why the Roman Empire has collapsed. They don't know it, they just confabulate. We confabulate all the time because we're not able to integrate all the information that we have. So one thing is all kinds of complex problems like climate, like history, like political processes, thousands of things, and that includes also medicine, of course, various aspects of medical processes, not just drug discovery or some bots that are giving you advice. All these things are so complex that we cannot really comprehend all the elements or all the features that actually have impact on things like historical processes. It's pandemics, it's education, it's migration, it's climate changes. I mean, thousands of things that have influenced people to behave the way they behaved and started the migration and wars, etc. There is a field that not many people know about called cliodynamics, and this field actually tries to predict lots of data, and they try to predict the next war. Because it's a kind of cyclic, not many people know it, but there are well-defined reasons why the war has been happening in Europe and elsewhere quite often. So all these things we have missed completely, so we don't understand the world. Even physics, I started from studying physics, and suddenly we find, we don't understand anything. Well, 94% is some kind of a dark matter, dark energy, nobody knows what it is, and some people think it does not exist at all. And it's all true, right? So we found ourselves in a situation where the unknown is the most important, and we don't know what will happen with the development of AI and how it will go. But I think there are many things worth working on and improving, and one of this is, of course, this idea of multi-agent systems and using large language models and multimodal models and large action models, which are coming now, to develop better agent systems, and they're going really to be a step forward. So I just gave a lecture for the graduate students in Krakow, and have been stressing, we started from ChatGPT, and this is basically associative systems. It just pops up with some ideas. And many of them can be wrong, because this is how our brains also work, right? We just have a thought, and then we have to verify it. The next step is how to verify it and how to make a complex chain of reasoning. And this is what is happening in AI now. All these chains of thoughts, chains of reasoning, deliberation, self-criticism, and multi-agent systems that criticize themselves, etc. How far that will bring us, I think very far, really. And very many things that people now say, okay, but AI still cannot do this or that. But in a year or two, you will see enormous progress in all the problems that we have now. So trying to make systems that are going to be, well, more reasonable than we are. and one of the definitions that people have been using of AI in a long time ago was that we try to teach computers to do things that we are able to do better. But people frequently do very stupid things. So that's not something that we want to do, right? One other thing, when the Go Zero has beaten the Go 100 to 0, you could see what happens when we have a large system that learns by itself, not from humans. And it's simpler in the large systems to learn things that are easy for the system and then bring the competence level to very high levels. While if the systems are learning from us, they frequently are biased by our knowledge. So the systems that we had before to play chess, when it was fed with all the rules and books, etc., were not that good as the systems that have learned by playing with itself for a longer time. They have discovered ways of solving problems that we could not dream of after thousands of years of developing, our knowledge in domains like Go playing or chess playing. So this is something that I would like to see people working on. How can we really make next step? We just heard also about this discovery in mathematics. Well, the systems may discover things that we just can't comprehend. That's the super AI coming.
Sticking to an
May I jump
sure,
into the discussion? Sure. Because I would share the Professor Wlodzislaw Duch's statement that the best answer to your question, which is probably not good for this forum, is to say, I don't know what will be the future. If we have this conference 15 years ago, still before complex models, new deep networks, new solutions, also industrial, I would say that observing top world conferences, I will risk what are people saying about the challenges. I'm not quite sure now when I attend top conferences, except seeing the word around generative AI, about the deep networks are very trendy, they offer things. What is this hidden future idea? At least for the researcher, dear students, it's very important if you will be PhD students, we are dreaming about it, to catch the fresh idea and to be a pioneer in it. This is super. It's very difficult. This is a short answer. But I would try to ask Włodzisław, if we think about complex problem and complex models like LLM or others for games, from the machine learning point of view, I would ask a naive question. Do you think it is a problem of scalability? Because, 20 years ago, we were developing algorithms and we were thinking another version of something, an ensemble, mixture of experts, etc. Let's do a new algorithm. But if you look on some experience with generative AI, building larger models, spending a lot of energy on doing, there are some phenomena appearing when you go over some scale. What do you think on it, that the large amount of resources and data is changing the world?
Well, you probably heard about Project Stargate. Project Stargate is this idea that some Altman came up with, that he needs $100 billion to make a super-sized kind of computing center, which probably will be this kind of a universal AI that knows everything. So there are two tendencies at the moment. One is to build bigger and bigger models, and so far the big models like GPT-3 or now Claude 3 or GPT-4 rather are actually beating others. But not that much, because what has been recently shown, for example, is that GPT-4 in tests where the zero-shot, at least, approach works not too well, is beaten very easily by the agents models that actually deliberate and do all the tricks to think in sequential way. So. Another trend is to build smaller models, just a few billion of parameters like small llama, Mistral or other things like that, which are more specialized and can do a lot of things in narrow domains. And I think many of these models are going to be created, all kinds of GPTs, which will be personal GPTs. So there are people convinced that scaling is the solution. And in some cases, it has been the solution. But you know, scaling where you feed the model with Twitter information is going to end up with a lot of trash and not much useful information. There is a nice paper called Textbooks is All You Need. I once actually made a model of how medical doctors learn when they are new, students graduating. They have past examinations, big books, and they have complete chaos in their heads. And when they see a real case, they just cannot really, distinguish what it is. I worked for a while in Cincinnati in Children's Medical Research Foundation, a huge foundation. And we found that about 1/3 of the initial diagnosis was roughly correct. 2/3 were quite wrong, because these people don't have experience, as we say. And then you could see that if you train the system on real cases, the system finds really some kind of a subclusters that are very precise and can distinguish within the broad, kind of diseases, specific cases, etc. So I think specialized systems can do it if they are really, focused on what they are doing. So I believe that it will go in two ways. On one way, on one hand side, you'll see these attempts to make $100 billion super. Everybody tries to buy now the new NVIDIA cards. As you've heard, OpenAI wanted to have like 600,000 by the end of the next year, and each of these cards. Each card is $30,000, so the whole enterprise is again $10 billion just for the cards. Well, I think it will go both ways, but for a while the big systems can really do more. It's a question how well they are trained and what kind of trash they have in. We all waited for Claude 3, and suddenly it comes and asks to make pictures of the popes from the past. It shows one woman and one black man in the pope robe. That was really very funny. And then people found that there are lots of pictures that the system is doing, trying to be politically correct, like the fathers of the American Constitution. All of them are, Asian, mixed, black, etc.
But the question is who was the father of American Constitution?
Well, the four guys who are in the Mount Rushmore.
Mr. Kościuszko, who writes the letters to the Jefferson.
Yes, but so we have to be careful how we train systems, and actually maybe I can mention one thing that we still haven't discussed, and this was how to make systems which are safe. So some of you have probably read or at least seen the book by Russell and Norvig. Anyone?
Usually I have it, it's a course book.
Yes, it's a big course book that just came out in Polish, and it's already outdated, as you know, because it just came last year, and it has been around for like 25 years. Well, Russell actually has written another book called Human Compatible Artificial Intelligence and the Problem of Control, where he says,
Stuart
if we will just build... Stuart Russell, yes, sorry. if we just build the systems with our ideas in mind, they're going to do things that we will be surprised. And well, Asimov wrote 500 stories about that. Simple three laws will lead us to all kinds of contradictions. But he says that we just have to build the systems which will try to understand what is important for us. It's a very vague idea. I don't think it can be easily implemented, but that's quite intriguing, that the systems can learn from us and learn better than we understand ourselves what is really of value for humans, right?
So maybe in the interest of time and lunch,
think about our
colleagues. I'm really thinking about it. So this is an applied machine learning conference. So as a closing remark, I would like to ask for one sentence from each of you. What would be your advice to the people here, right? Researchers, students, developers, in the context of AI and responsibility? What advice would you give the audience here in terms of legal, algorithmic, and future? What would be your one point, like, takeaway of advice for the people here, starting with Robert Kroplewski?
Forget about Artificial Intelligence Act.
That was also my advice.
To the one momentum, of course. But why? You are here on the Ghost Day. I love that name, Ghost, something invisible, what I decode. Don't afraid invisibility, but experiment, test, talk, collaborate each other, and produce own system. Test this in the special laboratory, and after that you can ask other people, okay, how we can implement this on the market. Of course, you must know how to design the system long time ago before you decide to go to the market, of course. But now it's it's very important. What I suggest also, please support any ideas of mutual recognition of interoperability. That will be interconnection, multi-artificial intelligence system around the world. And this is a real chance, because you can jump to the many value chains, the interdependent value chains, and you can implement your own product, but please don't sell it. This is power of intellectual property for you.
Professor Stefanowski, your advice?
I will share also this view that you should develop your own solution. But looking on some experience with artificial intelligence and related, let's say, domains, I think you should be ready for interesting journey. Doesn't matter in research or developers or applied. I guess you should be ready that you need to learn new things, because this is a very active area. And something which we were learned 20 years ago is not valid now. We should have new methods, new approaches. So be open and be ready for learning all your life.
Finally, Professor Duch?
Well, work hard and have fun.
Yes.
Okay. And with that, I thank our experts and you, and let's go to lunch.
Thank you that you listened to us. Thank you.